Hello there. Welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy, and for today's video, we're going to be discussing a topic briefly about a kind of rumor that's been kicking up a lot on social media. This is a rumor that the Star Wars community has seen before, so it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but it's kicking up again for some reason in recent days, that Lucasfilm and Disney are discussing an Old Republic series for Disney+. If you're not familiar with what the Old Republic era of Star Wars is, pretty much if you're not someone who got into Star Wars until around the time The Mandalorian came out, the Old Republic is an era that takes place hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years before the events of The Phantom Menace. This takes place several hundred years before the events of The Acolyte as well. The Old Republic is essentially the Sith at their peak. There was a Sith Empire, thousands of Sith warriors fighting against thousands of Jedi all throughout the galaxy. There are tons of video games and books about this era, comic books as well. Some of the most famous stuff from this era being the Knights of the Old Republic game and the Old Republic game as well. The Old Republic game is actually still being updated to this day with content drops. It has a very, very strong, tight-knit community, and it's had it for decades now. Some very notable names come out of the Old Republic era, like Satele Shan, Bastila Shan, Darth Malgus, Darth Revan, Darth Nihilus, Darth Malak. I could go on and on with names from these games, from these books. It is a very, very important piece of Star Wars for a lot of people, especially people my age in their 20s to 30s. It's the Star Wars that we grew up with alongside the prequels. However, if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, I really think that a Star Wars series in this era on Disney Plus would be doomed to fail. And really the reason that I feel this way is because of that tight-knit, very, very passionate community behind this era. We've seen it time and time again in the last 5 or so years. The Disney Plus era of Star Wars has existed, where there's a lot of meddling going on behind the scenes, whether it's the suits up at, the shareholder level that are saying we want to see this, this, and this in the shows, to the executives in Lucasfilm, to the executives at Disney. All different levels of middle management have consistently stifled the creative process in a lot of Star Wars projects. We saw stuff like this with the Kenobi series, the Book of Boba Fett series. We saw it even sprinkled in with The Mandalorian Season 3. A lot of stuff gets moved around and switched around, and very few times is it the fault of the creatives and the writing team. More so, it seems to be the fault of all the middle management going on, all those people that have no idea, have no creative bones in their body, have no idea how to write or tell a story or build a universe. They're just saying, oh, focus groups said that, this would look good in a show, so let's make sure we do that, prioritize that over everything else, move stuff you've already written into this story out so we can include this instead. Because hard data and numbers don't lie, right? Right, yeah, for sure. We've seen that time and time again with Star Wars series here where, people that have no idea what they're doing are just really honestly, for lack of a better term, they seem to ruin it for the creatives and the writers here. And it's a huge bummer because you have actors and writers that are really passionate about Star Wars and passionate about the franchise, and they just get walked all over by these suits. And really, there's nothing they can do. They're helpless because these are the people that are giving them their pay. So at some degree, they have to follow what these people say. It's very unfortunate. All of that to say, I really don't think that it would work for the Old Republic era, at least not how things are going with the company right now. All of that to say, in a very long-winded way, I really don't foresee that an Old Republic series would be received well by the fandom. My main reasoning is there's been a consistent lack of clarity and lack of consistency in the introduction of legacy characters from legacy Star Wars media in the newer stuff, whether it's movies or the Disney Plus series. Lots and lots of people have had complaints about how characters like Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia were handled. Characters in more recent events like Boba Fett, people have a lot of complaints about how he was handled. Now, I want to preface as well, I would love to see a series like like this, but I would like to see a series like this done well. I just don't foresee that there would be a way to get the right people in the right spots to really tell this story in an effective way. The Old Republic is something that is so expansive and so vast. I feel like if they try to retell the story of Darth Revan or Darth Malgus or, Satele Shan, you're going to have just a huge disappointment from the fandom of those games. Just as a side note, specifically on Darth Revan, I see a lot of people say they want Keanu Reeves to play Darth Revan, and I really just don't think that that's doable personally, just because Keanu is like approaching 60 years old as of the making of this video, and because he's getting up there in age, I just don't see how Darth Revan could be effectively played by, someone who's kind of getting up there now, so I just personally, I think he's kind of out of the age range of a character like Darth Revan. Back to the main point, though, with the Old Republic, I just don't see how you could try to tell stories using these characters without completely destroying what's already been created for these characters. And again, in the case of the Old Republic characters, 20 years of storytelling. I feel like if there was a series, it would have to just be a direct retelling of the events that occurred in the video games, the story-wise, so that you could appease the fandom in that way. And even then, I just don't see how it could work. I don't see how it could be done effectively to really satisfy, especially the fandom that is extremely nostalgic for the Old Republic era and the Old Republic video games. If you're bringing in these legacy characters, I feel like the only effective way that it could be done, whether it's a new story or, the retelling of existing stories with these characters, the only way I could see it work is by bringing in people who are extremely guru level knowledgeable on these games. And I just don't see that being something that Lucasfilm would do. Because on top of that, I feel like with something as complex and as intricate as the Old Republic era already is, again, I'll mention for like the third or fourth time now, 20 years of development, from just the video game aspect, you would need someone that is so knowledgeable on that era and actually cares enough about that era to pay it its homage and pay it its respect. And I just don't see most creatives being that interested in that. It's a lot of homework to do if you want to get caught up on this era, and I feel like Lucasfilm should not touch it with a 10-foot pole unless they wanted to just tell a story in this era and just have it be a general story, where the era kind of is the backseat, is the setting for what's going on, and we have a new adventure with new characters. But even then, I still think it would fall flat, because when you say Old Republic, people automatically think of characters like Darth Revan, Darth Malgus, and you're just going to make those people frustrated and sad if you don't show those characters at all, and you have all just new characters and no mention of any legacy characters. So it's really just no way to please everyone. I think something in this era that could work, and in my opinion, it's the only series that could really work, would be kind of leaning into the Mandalorian themes that we've had over the last 5 or so years and focusing on the Mandalorian Wars. Through the Old Republic game, we know that Mandalorians tended to be pretty buddy-buddy with the Sith Empire in this era, so I feel like it would be a great way to maybe dabble in some Sith aspects of the show while also having the main conflict be the Mandalorians versus the Jedi Order. We've had it explained to us in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, in The Mandalorian, in so many pieces of Star Wars media that have been in, recent history on screen, mostly animated stuff, that the Mandalorians and the Jedi are ancient enemies dating back to the days of the Old Republic. I would love to see a show that really focused on that conflict, maybe, the roots of the conflict, how it progressed. Obviously the Jedi ended up winning this conflict, so I think it'd be super cool to see how this would play out in a series, and it's something that is, vague enough that you could bring in some new characters on both sides and focus on them. I think that also bringing in Tar Vizsla, the creator of the Darksaber, would be awesome, and it would be maybe a great character to focus on if you wanted to make a story about this conflict. I think that would be something people would really dig, especially with the Darksaber and its lore being so prominent in recent Star Wars media. As a lifelong Star Wars fan, I'd absolutely love to see on screen, how the Mandalorians broke into the Jedi Temple and stole the Darksaber back. I would love to see kind of how things fell apart after the death of Tar Vizsla. It would just be such a cool cool show idea, in my opinion. You know, I'm no writer, I'm no creative, so it's just spitballing and brainstorming ideas, but I think that would be something that the general Star Wars fandom would be a lot more appealed to, as opposed to trying to do something that relies so heavily on legacy characters. I think this would kind of be the sweet spot. You'd get the new Star Wars fans interested because it's got Mandalorians in it. You'd have older Star Wars fans interested because of comics that we've all read back from the 2000s about the Mandalorian Wars. It would be something that would be appealing to just the general Star Wars fandom. And again, like I just said, you know, I feel like it's just too dangerous throwing in stories if you try to tell a story about Darth Revan or, you know, a lot of your main characters from those older games. I feel like you're asking for frustration, and unless you have the people who are fanatical about that era and about those characters at the helm of the creative team, I feel like it's just not going to be done right, and it's going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But with that, yeah, those are my brief thoughts on this topic. Let me know, guys, would you think that my idea for a Mandalorian Wars series for Star Wars would be cool? Do you think I'm wrong, and do you think Lucasfilm and Disney could pull off an Old Republic series and do it well? Or is it just kind of one of those things where you think people hear Old Republic and they automatically think it's going to be good because that's the expectation that comes with that era? So that's going to be it for this video. If you are not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you are an ARC Trooper on my Patreon, you would have seen this video early. If you'd like to join that Patreon, get access to early content, giveaways, and more, check out the link in the description below, as well as all the links to my social media. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. 4-2, pick your target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?